COPA 2024 is just a mere few hours away from kicking off. Argentina, Canada, it's going to be a really good game, at least I hope. And I thought it would be nice that prior to the tournament starting, we kind of go over the realistic expectations for the U.S. before things get going, right? So that we know once everything kind of happens, at what point do we jump in and start yelling at Berhalter, right? So I think, and this should be pretty easy. I think I'm on the same page as most people, but we're going to find out and we're going to see. When you're looking at things like Euro, I think it's safe to say there's probably a half dozen teams where their realistic expectations are to win Euros, right? So teams like England, France, Italy, Germany, Portugal, those are all teams that the expectations are to not only be in the finals, but to win it. And if they don't, it's kind of seen as a failure. So if we take what we know about the Euros and the expectations for a lot of those clubs, we can kind of determine what the realistic expectations are for the USMNT and the other national teams. So pretty much I'm looking at the odds right now, and Argentina, Brazil, those are the two teams to where the expectations, the realistic expectations, are to win COPA. That anything less than winning COPA is a disappointment, is a failure. So it's pretty easy when you're a fan of those teams. It's fun because you know that you should go pretty far and that you have a really good team, and that's year in, year out. But the expectations are pretty high to where what are the odds of you winning everything all the time? That's tough. But I think of all the teams that are competing in COPA, those are the two to where realistic expectations are to win COPA. The U.S. team, if we all just kind of take a step back and we go to that 30,000 foot level where we're looking down over everything, what are the real expectations for the U.S. team? And I kind of look at it also as if we were setting an over-under for how far the U.S. team will go. I think that a proper over-under, if we were setting the lines, would be setting the over-under at the quarterfinals. Anything below making it to the quarterfinals, so basically not getting out of the group stage, would be a failure. Anything beyond the quarterfinals, so they end up beating Colombia or Brazil in the first knockout, would be a successful COPA. Here's that gray area to where I think we all know this is where the U.S. team is going to reside in, and where the magic 8 ball, the crystal ball for us, we're going to be arguing over the same thing. And it's probably going to come down to Berhalter again, to where he's the lightning rod. But I've already told you weeks ago that this cycle for Gregg Berhalter, I don't hold it against him. He's doing what he was brought in to do. He's doing more of what he wants to do with the culture, whatever game style he's enacting. U.S. Soccer Federation gave him a thumbs up. We want more of that, brought him back. And the players, especially the leadership group, were like, we want Berhalter back. We love Gregg. You can't argue that happened. So this time around, I'm not holding really anything against Berhalter. If the team does not do well through COPA and heading into World Cup 2026, it's on the players and it's on U.S. Soccer Federation. So let's answer, what are the realistic expectations for this team? I think, if we're all honest with ourselves, a berth into the quarterfinals, basically making it out of pool play, is the expectations for this team. And I know that there's a lot of U.S. fans leading up to this that were setting really lofty goals for a semifinal berth, winning it all. And that's simply not going to happen. If we're looking statistically, like if you were to ask somebody who says that this team should make it to the semis, should make it to the finals, the question we have to ask those people are, what are you basing that off of? What data point in the past are we pointing to where we're saying this team can do that? I would imagine probably they would throw in the friendly Brazil game. Okay. That's obviously one of the games that, if you're a Berhalter fan or you're kind of defending what progress we're making, that's one of them, in addition to the England draw in the World Cup. Those are the two. And then you get into arguing about the Mexico games. But I think a lot of us are like, well, you know, how much can you take out of beating a Mexican national team that's like at the lowest of lows in their history? So I think if we're looking at this rationally, the U.S. team will and should make it out of pool play. They'll probably make it interesting. They will probably do something where maybe it's against Panama. They should beat Panama, but maybe we draw against them or we lose. And somehow we end up pulling out a win against Uruguay or something. I don't know. They're just going to make it interesting to get out of pool play. But the realistic expectations are to make it out of pool play, make it to those quarterfinals, and then they're not going to beat Colombia. They're not going to beat Brazil. There's nothing that we can point to say that they're going to be able to do that. So here is where we're going to have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, but let's just say we make it past the quarterfinals, that over under. If the U.S. makes it to the quarterfinals and beats either Colombia or they beat Brazil, then I think a lot of us are going to have to come to a little bit of a reckoning and give Berhalter and this group and U.S. Soccer Federation. Let me finish. If they make it past Brazil or Colombia, we're going to have to take a big step back and say, okay, well, let's play this out. Let's see what Berhalter does and give him the benefit of the doubt to finish off through this window of World Cup 2026. Now, flip side, let's do the under. Let's say they don't make it out of group stage of pool play. Something happens, they don't make it out. Here's the interesting thing that I'll be, on one hand, I'll be shocked if they let Berhalter go if we don't make it out of pool play. Right? I mean, I will be kind of shocked. But then everything that they have told us, why he is here, why they brought him back after he was gone, after all of the stuff with Reina and that whole fiasco, they brought him back. Are they going to get rid of him if we don't make it out of pool play? If I'm pointing to any data points in the past, I would have to say probably not. I think he's here. I don't know what can happen for U.S. Soccer Federation to have enough pressure to get rid of him. But we will see. The most likely scenario for COPA is we're all going to be in this cloud of everything's unclear. You get that 8 ball, you shake it up, unclear. Everything's still unclear. We don't know about this team. Is this the golden generation? Are we overrating these players? Is Gregg Berhalter a good coach? A decent coach? Is he what we need? I think we're going to be in that situation where we make it out of pool play, we get to the quarterfinals, and we lose to Colombia and Brazil, which we should. We're not better, and quite frankly, we're not even close. We're not close to Colombia. You know, the other teams outside of Argentina and Brazil that their expectations are to win, the other teams that are up there where I think their fans can kind of dream about winning, but I think their expectations, Uruguay, Colombia, Mexico, I think their expectations are to make it to the semifinals, to compete at least for the title. I think that if Uruguay, Colombia, Mexico, if they get to like the semifinals, I think their fans would be fine with it. Especially Mexico, to where things are so gloomy there, to where if they make it out, I think they'd be pretty happy with it. I still think Mexico has a little bit higher expectations than the U.S. team from their fans. I think they think that they should make it out of the first knockout game. Is that realistic? Probably not. We're doing realistic. So I think a lot of us U.S. fans are hoping to see the USMNT make it past the quarters, and then we would all say, okay, yeah, this was a successful COPA. I've seen a lot of people also talking that we should be making semifinals and final, and I'm like, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic here, right? So there you go. U.S. realistic expectations, make it out of pool play. We'll probably most likely lose to Colombia. We'll lose to Brazil. And then we're going to be right in that gray area up until World Cup. And no matter what, I still think even if we hit the under and we don't make it out of pool play, I think Gregg's here. No matter what. But we'll see. Let me know. Let me know whether you agree that those are realistic expectations. And then maybe perhaps what are your personal goals for this team for COPA that you think they can do? What's the ceiling? Is there any chance that there's somebody out there that thinks that will come on and put in the comments that they think that anything less than a finals berth is the realistic expectations? We'll find out.